Good evening. My name is Dele Ayemibo. You're on to another edition of Import-Export Platform on Facebook Live, brought to you by 3 Tempest Trade Academy. This is a program that educates viewers in area of international trade, both on the import and export section. And this evening we'll continue our discussion on the A to Z of export business financing. And today we'll be discussing part 17. Olagboyega Adebayo, thank you very much for joining. Good evening. Prince Adedamola Adeyemo, thank you very much for joining. Good evening. A to Z of export business financing, part 17. Part 17. Part 17. We spoken about payment method in the past, but this time around we'll be discussing it in detail. I'll be looking at the payment method in international trade as related to A to Z of export business financing. Remember, we have discussed financing from different angles. Like I said, we might end up at part 20. I'm hoping we would stop at part 20, but we're discussing it from different angles. Basically trying to answer different questions that goes on in the mind of individuals that want to go into the space, and also to ensure that whoever it is that finds itself in the space is able to secure financing, present a bankable business proposal to the bank. One of the things you need to know if you are requesting for export business financing from the bank, one of the very pivotal things you need to know is on payment method. I've tried to touch on this in various parts in the past, but this evening I'll be looking at it in detail and drilling down on. I'll be focusing on the 4 major payment methods. And then I will talk briefly about the new one that it just came into being less than 5 years now. That's the newest of all. Even though the world have not fully accepted it, but it's an earliest expression of how technology is going to drive international trade across the world. And it's accepted in a few countries, but it's not yet in Nigeria, even though it's been launched in Nigeria, but Nigeria was not... at the time, CBN was not favorably disposed. There are so many other issues CBN need to tackle. So introducing a new payment method was the least. After all, we had other options of what we could explore. So this evening we'll be talking about the payment method. There are 4 payment methods in international trade, recently increased to 5. And this payment method include open account, also called cash against document. Then we have bill for collection. Then we have letter of credit. And then we have advance payment. And the new one that was recently introduced is called the bank payment obligation. The bank payment obligation. Open account. Open account, often called cash against document. The exporter in open account ship the goods, send document directly to the buyer, then wait for payment to be made after a pre-agreed future date. This method of payment is only favorable to the buyer when the risk of the exporter, it's only favorable to the buyer, but very risky rather for the exporter. It's favorable to the buyer, but very, very risky for the exporter. Why? The exporter will ship the goods and then wait. The exporter will ship the goods and then wait. What is he waiting for? The exporter is basically waiting for the importer to clear the goods, and having cleared the goods, probably sell the goods before effecting payment. So clearing of the goods, sales of the goods, and then effecting of payment. So it's a very risky option for the importer, for the exporter rather, because if the importer is a fraudulent person, that means the exporter stands the risk of not getting paid. However, it may interest you to know that most payment methods in the world, so the most trade transactions in the world are done on this term. In 2017, total trade volume in the world was about $17 trillion. 80% of that trade were done on open account. 80% of that trade were done on open account. It's interesting. Very, very interesting. that 80% of that trade was done on open account. And that tells you how vital, how serious, and how important international trade is and should be to any nation. 80% of world trade is done on open account. What that means is, if you're a buyer, you have a lot of options of people selling. If you're a seller, you might not have too many options of people that want to buy the product. And that's why people that accept open accounts, but from a credible institution, organization, or with another protective mechanism. So they can use other protective instruments. I've mentioned it on this program. The standby letter of credit, demand guarantee. Standby letter of credit, demand guarantee. So they might use this kind of other payment method like standby letter of credit, like demand guarantee, and they can use it to be able to protect themselves. To protect themselves. Because they need to accept this payment method. They need to accept this payment method. Since many buyers are going to offer that anyway. Now, the question we should ask is, why do buyers offer payment method? That kind of payment method. Sometimes the buyer might have issues with you in the sense that you as an expert, in the sense that if I give you an instrument that protects and guarantees payment, otherwise known as letter of credit, and I'm going to be charged for that, how am I sure that the document you sent will not be having issue with the bank? And knowing fully well that under this kind of transaction, if you send documents that are having issues, I won't be able to get the good clear. I might begin to incur extra costs at the port because of your documents. So if I'm dealing with it for the first time, I might not consider it. If I must consider it, you might have to give me another instrument to protect me just in case you refuse to ship or you ship documents that have discrepancy that is making me not to get my payment. So a number of factors then need to be, a number of other stuff need to be put in place. I mean, in terms of other considerations need to be put in place to ensure that at the end of the day, the person that is giving you this instrument to protect you himself does not remain unprotected. In the sense that you are unable to ship, he has incurred costs, he can't get the money back. Or you are eventually able to ship, but you ship the low quality. Or you eventually ship, but you ship and present documents that were not very, very compliant. And then he is unable to get payment as at when due. Remember, this payment method also will be challenging, very much challenging for any bank to want to accept from you. So the implication of that is that you might not be able to go to the bank to secure funding if this is your payment method. But there are still ways you can make it acceptable to the bank by coming up with, remember, I've said this on the previous edition, Enoch Ejukolem. I hope I didn't mutilate that name. Thank you very much for joining. Good evening. Prince Adedamola Adeyemo, thank you very much for joining. Good evening. I mentioned in the past that whenever you are thinking of trade financing, immediately you think of a risk element, and you are looking at mitigating that risk. Always think of demand guarantee and standby letter of credit. Think risk mitigation rather. Think demand guarantee, think standby letter of credit. Think risk mitigation, think demand guarantee, think the standby letter of credit. These two instruments are not very commonly used in Nigeria. I'm writing 2 books right now on the two. They're already with the publisher. I'm hoping before the middle of March they will be published. And we'll be able to also advertise it through this platform. These are instruments that bankers need to have as handbook on their desk to protect them against the risk that everyone will face. To protect them against the risk that everyone will face who wants to deal in this kind of instrument. In this kind of payment method. So if you have open account, if you are doing an open account transaction and you can get a commercial standby to guarantee the payment, or you can get a payment guarantee to assure the payment from a reputable bank, then the bank will still accept that open account from you, your bank, and fund it. Why are they funding it? there is a guarantee for payment. However, if you have been doing the same transaction with the same buyer and it's been paying for many years, some bank can start by probably funding part of it and see how it goes, because you already have good history and they can check up this company and they see that they have capacity, they have integrity, they are going to be able to do this in terms of payment on time and in time. So open account. To differentiate between them on the contract, look out for, the term cash against document makes this payment method to be confused with bill for collection. When you see a shipping document, when you see a contract, a sales contract, and on it you have cash against document, sometimes people interpret cash against document as bill for collection. But more often than not, cash against document is often not bill for collection, but rather open account. And I will explain bill for collection later on. But if you see, you have an agreement, a contract with a buyer, and the terms of payment is cash against document. If you are confused as to how to differentiate this, you are not sure of what the customer, the importer is talking about by putting that term cash against document. To differentiate it on the contract, look out for instruction to send document through the bank. Now, if you have the word cash against document on your contract, and there's an instruction on that contract that document should be routed not to you not to the importer directly, but through the importer's bank to the importer, that will not be the regular cash against document. That will be a cash against document called the open account. Amarachi Anya, thank you very much for joining. Good evening. That will be a cash against document called open account. But like I said, typically most cash against document are open account, because in both cases, both bill for collection and cash against document, you will send the goods, send the document, and expect payment. The difference is, who do you route the document through? If you are sending document directly to the buyer, that's a regular open account. If you send the document directly to the buyer, so if you send the document indirectly to the buyer through the buyer's bank, that will be a bill for collection. A bill for collection. Now let me move on to that term bill for collection so I can explain it. Bill for collection is a term, it's also called documentary collection. That's another name for it. Documentary collection. It is similar to open account, but differ in the sense that documents are indirectly sent to the buyer through the exporter and then the importer's bank. So as an exporter, I give the document to my bank sends the document to the buyer's bank delivers the document to the buyer. When the bank is delivering the document to the buyer, there are two options available, which I will have given that instruction ab initio to my bank, and my bank will communicate that to the buyer's bank. There are two options available. The first option is this. The importer have the option of getting that document aside. That aside means as soon as he signs the document, collecting it from the bank will debit him. As soon as he signs the document, collecting it from the bank will debit him. Signed document, signed payment. But we also have tenured payment. Tenured payment. What does tenured payment mean? That's tenured option under bill for collection. So we have bill for collection side, we have bill for collection tenor. Under bill for collection tenor, I will put inside that document an IOU document called bill of exchange. It's like a draft. It's called a draft. It's called a bill of exchange. This document basically says, I hereby request the sum of so and so amount from the buyer, and the buyer is due to pay this money within so period, maybe 120 days from the date of shipment. From a particular, I'll put the date. So the maturity date will be stated. It can be 30 days, it could be 60 days, it could be 180 days, it could be 120 days. When I put a clause like that on a draft and I add it to the document that I am sending to the buyer's bank through my bank, that is a tenured bill for collection. So the basic difference between open account and bill for collection is that documents are routed through my bank as an exporter to the importer's bank, and from the importer's bank to the importer in his country. So I am 3 theme packs. I ship under 3 theme packs. I send document to my bank. Let's say ABC Bank in Nigeria. I don't want to advertise any bank. ABC Bank in Nigeria. When I send it to that bank will send it to Bank of China in China. Bank of China will release that document to XYZ buyer in China. When I'm routing my document through the bank to the buyer, without any of the bank giving undertaking to pay, that's a bill for collection transaction. In open account, I send document directly to the buyer, and buyer pay me after certain days. But document go directly. I will give it to DHL. DHL will courier it directly and give it to the guy on the other side. And I will get payment from the guy directly, probably through the bank or whatever means he's going to use, card or something. But if I'm sending document to the buyer, but this time around I'm routing that document through my bank, but my bank is just a channel for transmitting document and collecting payment, and my bank is not in any way guaranteeing the payment, that is a bill for collection transaction. That is a bill for collection transaction, because my bank is not guaranteeing the payment. The third type is called letter of credit. In letter of credit, you can see the progression. Open account, I send document directly to the buyer without bank's involvement. Bill for collection, I send document indirectly to the buyer through my bank. But my bank, no bank is giving any undertaking. Bank is just channel for transmitting document and collecting payment. Third level, I send document through my bank to the buyer's bank and to the buyer, but the buyer's bank initially gave me a guarantee for payment. In bill for collection, I send document to the buyer for the buyer to use the document to clear the goods without guarantee for payment on the part of the buyer's bank. If I am now sending document to the buyer through the buyer's bank, after the buyer's bank have initially given me guarantee for payment, after all, I will actually receive that guarantee for payment before I even ship. Because on our agreement, it will have been stated payment terms is letter of credit. Payment method is letter of credit. And because the payment method is letter of credit is an undertaking of the buyer's bank given to the seller, giving assurance of payment when shipment is made, and the terms and conditions for payment are to be presented, and the terms and conditions of payment are met through the document presented by the exporter to the importer's bank. A letter of credit is a written undertaking, usually transmitted electronically, by the importer's bank, issued in favor of the exporter, giving assurance of payment when shipment has been made and documents are presented that comply with the terms and conditions set out for payment. For example, terms and conditions could be: ship this good to us. Ship this good to us. We will pay you, but you must present bill of lading, invoice, packing list, certificate of origin, certificate of inspection. 5 documents must be presented to us. This good must be shipped on or before the 30th of March. Document must be presented on or before the 15th of April. These are terms and conditions. If I'm able to get the 5 documents and I ship before the end of March, and I send document and it got to the buyer's bank before the middle of April, I will be paid. If these are the terms and conditions, I will be paid. If I violate any of those terms and conditions by virtue of shipping after 30th, by virtue of sending documents maybe on the 20th of April, that can deny me payment, even though my good is on the sea. And that is what they mean by the terms and conditions. Another term and condition could be, on the document of inspection, they state that you are shipping to us pap. And it said, specification, the pap must be made from corn, the corn must be white, the moisture must be 8% or less, maximum of 8%. The impurity should be 0.05%. The the weight should be, of each of them should be 500 gram. The number in the carton should be 20 gram, 20 pieces. There is a moisture specification. There is a raw material used in making it, a specification. There is the impurity level. There is the weight of each sachet or pack, and weight and the number in the carton. These are quality specification, shipment expectation. The inspection report that the third party that will check it in Nigeria, like SGS, we issue must state those specifications. If any of them is violated, I'm better off not shipping. Sorry, I'm better off not sending it. And not shipping actually, because at this time I've not even shipped. If I must ship, I must get the buyer to amend the terms to suit my new quality, or he gives me an undertaking that he will waive that discrepancy, because the buyer have the right, have everything. He can decide to, look, my bank, please ignore that discrepancy. Please send me the document. Let me go ahead and clear the goods and pay. That is a letter of credit. A letter of credit, also known as documentary credit, is an irrevocable undertaking of the importer's bank to the seller to effect payment on the shipped goods when documents that comply with the terms of letter of credit are presented by the buyer. The exporter and the importer are protected at any point in time in the lifespan of the letter of credit transaction. This explains the reason why it is the most preferred payment method for both buyers and sellers in international trade. However, the importer needs to ensure that the inspection report, that evidence that goods has been of good quality and in right quantities, are part of the shipping document to be presented for payment. This will ensure that goods being paid for are of right quality and right quantity, because the buyer is likely going to pay before arrival of the goods, before he sees the goods. Bill for collection, open account, letter of credit. The last one we'll be discussing is advance payment. This involves payment in advance by the buyer ahead of shipment. Payment in advance by the buyer ahead of shipment by the exporter. The buyer is paying the exporter ahead of shipment. It is the opposite of open account in the sense that it is only favorable to the exporter, but very risky to the importer. Very favorable to the exporter, very risky to the importer. It is the opposite of open account in the sense that it is only favorable to the exporter, but very risky to the importer. Open account is favorable to the importer, risky to the exporter. Advance payment, favorable to the exporter, risky to the importer. Inversely proportional to each other. An importer willing to give an advance payment to the exporter but need a cover can ensure that this advance payment is refunded if the exporter fails to ship by requesting for an advance payment guarantee to be issued by the exporter's bank. Sorry, I had a break in transmission. I'm rounding off. So, as long as an exporter wants to provide funds in advance, he can actually protect himself for the risk of the other guy not paying. How does he protect himself? He basically protects himself by ensuring that the exporter provides a guarantee from his bank that he will ship the goods as expected. Else, the importer can call on the guarantee and retrieve the money it has paid. The last payment method I mentioned was bank payment obligation. Bank payment obligation is like open account plus letter of credit combined together, but driven by technology. So imagine open account, the simplicity of open account. Imagine letter of credit, the security of letter of credit, fused together in one transaction. The simplicity of open account, the security of letter of credit, fused together in one transaction and driven by technology equal to bank payment obligation. Bank payment obligation. Like I said, it's not yet done in Nigeria, so I won't expatiate further on it. But if you are really curious, you can go ahead and do some research online and check up what exactly bank payment obligation means. We have come to the end of our discussion today. We are still discussing A to Z of export business financing. Today we've discussed part 17. And what we look at is payment method. And for you to be able to understand the payment method involved, from the payment method we have discussed today, obviously, two payment methods the bank will be interested in is advance payment and letter of credit. But for advance payment, you really do not need bank funding. For advance payment, you already have the fund. But for letter of credit, you might see in the bank funding, it's just a guarantee. Payment is only made after the shipment has been done. Thank you very much for listening again today. My name remains Dele Ayimibo. This is Import-Export Platform, Facebook Live, brought to you by Treatment Trade Academy. See you tomorrow morning for another edition, part 18 of A to Z of Export Business Financing. And we'll be discussing warehouse financing. Warehouse financing using goods as collateral. Warehouse financing using goods as collateral. Thank you very much for listening. See you tomorrow morning. Bye for now.